We're delighted to welcome you to the 14th Jaipur Literature Festival, protected by Dettol. It's a pleasure to present today Shri M, The Journey. Shri M in conversation with Punita Roy. Spiritual teacher, social reformer, educationist and author Shri M's transformational journey from a young boy to yogi is a story of single-minded discipline and dedication. Born into a Muslim family as Mumtaz Ali Khan in Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, he established the Satsang Foundation 20 years ago as a meeting point for all spiritual seekers of all persuasions. Conversant with the principles and beliefs of most major religions, Shri M's teachings seek to transcend the outer shell of all religions by exploring the core of their teachings and nurturing the innate goodness in every human being. His immensely popular books include Apprentice to a Himalayan Master, a yogi's autobiography, Journey Continues, a sequel to Apprenticed to a Himalayan Master, Yoga Also for the Godless, and The Homecoming and Other Stories. In conversation with the founder trustee of the Yuva Ekta Foundation, Punita Roy. Shri M is a spiritual teacher, author, social reformer, educationist, and global speaker. His memoir, Apprentice to a Himalayan Master, a yogi's autobiography, became an instant bestseller with a sequel titled The Journey Continues. He is the author of various other books on philosophy, yoga, and Indian mysticism. Shri M established the Satsang Foundation 20 years ago, and his mission has resulted in several initiatives in areas of education, community health, environment, and the oneness of humanity. Punita Roy is a core team member of the Karmic Research Center, a space that focuses on the well-being of an individual from a holistic point of view. Set up in 2000, the activities at KRC empower the individual in the use of range of tools from meditation, theatre, role-playing, martial arts, creative writing, amongst others. A media professional with over 30 years of experience, her interest in expressive arts has led her to conduct workshops with young people using theatre and the arts as tool for self-exploration and transformation. As the founder trustee of the Yuva Ekta Foundation, her vision of equity and social justice has translated into the creation of several such platforms. Please do remember to comment by typing it into the comment section. Ladies and gentlemen, Shri M, The Journey, Shri M in conversation with Punita Roy. Enjoy the session.
Namaste, Shri M.
Namaste.
Thank you so much for being part of the festival. It's an honor for me personally to be able to have this conversation with you. Though right from the outset, I just feel that this time is too short to do justice to all that I want to ask you. But let's just begin right away. I've been poring over your book, The Apprentice to a Himalayan Master, and The Journey Continues. And in your own words, I mean, I was completely trying to find the right words to describe it. And I said, let me use your words. And you've called it the fantasy of this fascinating saga, this incredible journey, from the southern coast of, South India up to the Himalayan peaks and back again. And the canvas of the masters, the teachers, the divine gurus that you've met in this lifetime, it's really awesome. But I want to start, Shri M, now, starting with your fascinating story of childhood, as a young Pathan boy, Mumtaz Ali Khan in Thiruvananthapuram. And even before you get into that story, you first take us back 100 years ago into a cave behind the cliffs of Badrinath, and you share the story of this 19-year-old yogi who's very deeply, austere and, advanced. And yet, because of an act of unkindness, he slips and falls. And it's almost like a thriller when you leave it with just the name Madhu, right? And then it starts, the story starts, and honestly, it's such a vividly etched story, Shri M. It's almost savory in terms of the sights, the sounds, the food you eat, the smells. It just recreates the entire thing. Coming to, I want you to just, in your own words, looking back in time, your first meeting with Babaji as a 9-year-old boy under the jackfruit tree. It's mystical, it's mysterious, it's almost like, wow, did this really happen? But can you just recount that to us briefly?
Sure. I'll have to put it in my own words because they may not be the same as in the book. So
of course.
that's it. Yeah. So, well, I I was a normal, uh, mostly normal child like any other at the age of 9, except that I had this funny habit of staring up at the clouds, starting from 4 years, 5 years, and thinking that they are some kind of snow-clad mountains. I was not even aware of the existence of the Himalayas then, but I thought they were like mountains with snow, especially when there were white clouds. This was a peculiar thing, of course, and I was very fond of listening to stories of Sufi saints told by my maternal grandmother. These are the only two things which you can say is a little bit different. And I don't know if this is different, but I was terribly mischievous. I was terrible. In fact, they had to control me with great force.
Right.
So, and then at the we had a large backyard, very big backyard. So there were many trees, and at the corner, at the end near the compound wall, at the end there was a jackfruit tree, old jackfruit tree, and all my friends, neighbors, we all used to play together, in the garden at the backyard. And one evening, they'd all gone back home, and I was just standing there and looking, wondering. Uh, I was looking not in the direction of the jackfruit tree, but somewhere this side, and thinking of one of the boys who had come to play. I said, maybe he'll come tomorrow, things like that. When I kind of turned and looked at the jackfruit tree, and there under the jackfruit tree, there was a person, very unusual. I have not seen anybody like that in Trivandrum in those areas. He was bare bodied except for a white little cloth on his waist. And he carried what I later found out was a kamandalu. Had big rudraksh, which also I didn't know then, on his neck, and had matted hair. This is what I remembered. He must have been about 6 foot or more, and quite thin, and very
You
fair.
speak about copper earrings also.
He had those big things which the Nath Sampradaya people wear,
Right.
very big ones, as big as yours. But the place was up here in the cartilage, not here in the loop. So, uh, but the most important feature was big eyes. Those eyes were with me for years, and but that I saw only later when I went close. And he did this, beckoned me. The normal reaction for that age would be to run, but somehow, because he's a stranger, absolutely strange looking person. But I decided, let me go. So I went and I came close to him. And the first question he asked me was, do you remember anything? I was puzzled. I said, no, I don't remember it. So it's in Hindi, of course. We speak Hindi at home, even
Ji.
though it's Kerala and Trivandrum. We are settlers,
Yes.
fourth generation settlers. So I said, no, मुझे तो कुछ याद नहीं आया. Then he put his hand on my head and he said, हाँ समय होने पर सब ठीक हो जाए. And then he said, वापस जाओ. So then I saw those eyes, and those eyes were with me, because by the time I reached the kitchen and turned back, there was nobody in sight. But I
Right.
don't think it's a vision, because it was physically proper, like I could feel. And then I went in and I tried to tell my mother, but I just couldn't say anything about only this matter. Everything else, but this got stuck in the throat.
Choked.
This continued for many years. Those eyes never left me. And though I had not been taught any formal meditation, I started waking up at midnight and meditating on my navel,
Hmm.
where there was a light, like one of those things we use in Deepavali, those chakras going
Yes.
on, but cool,
Right.
not hot. And this used to spread the kind of ecstasy throughout my body. And this is my first meditation. That's how I started. So one thing clicked. I said, the source of joy is inside.
Right. Right. Right.
It's and I saw these eyes every time I closed my eyes. There were those large eyes, and plus I started automatically and naturally to sit in Padmasana.
Right.
So this is
And
how it started.
this was the beginning of your inner journey, so to
Huh.
speak,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And even though you couldn't speak to anyone about it, I mean, from the age of 9 to 19, when you actually set
yeah.
out to the Himalayas, you met so
Yes.
many what you call avadhuts,
Yogi.
mastans, musts, you know.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I mean, if I could just name a few, there was Gopalasamy, Kalidi Mastan, Maima, Swami Abhinav. I mean, it's just mind blowing.
All the people in that area who I could contact, I did.
Right.
Some I have not even mentioned. There were some people I met hardly for an hour, things like that. But I think it was the touch and that beginning that started off this whole sequence of meeting people.
Right,
Uh,
right, right. And then when at 19, I think you're given money for the examination fees, and you
yeah,
decide to run.
yeah. You
You
know,
set up
I felt
Chennai,
I felt I was in a cage. It
right?
was a golden cage, of course. We had no problem with finance, money, nothing. My father was a construction man, uh, and his only regret was that I didn't take over from him. So there was no problem of money or anything, but I felt that I was in a cage. I wanted to fly out like a free bird. And if I told them, they wouldn't let me go. So I just ran off. Mm.
And you ran away for 3.5 years and came back a completely different person. But even in that journey from Chennai to Delhi and then Haridwar, Badrinath, you stopped at many ashrams, you received a lot, but you were always restless. You know,
Oh,
there was,
yes.
and what is so interesting is that on that journey, as you meet people in the lower Himalayas, you slowly start getting a little disillusioned about ashrams,
Yeah.
about godmen, and you
Yeah.
even question that, am I actually on the right? I mean, will I
Exactly.
find what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
You know?
I
And
was a very skeptical person. I still am, in a way. Mm.
after all that,
So
yes. And then
I, yeah, you said
sorry, no,
something.
I was just coming to the Vyasa Guha,
Uh,
where you see the dhuni and then you hear Babaji's voice, the same voice that you hear under the jackfruit tree. And he says, where have you been wandering, Madhu? Can you take us to that moment?
yeah, you have read it perfectly, huh? The autobiography.
Yes, absolutely, PMG. Yes.
Yeah, so what happened was as you said, I was getting quite disillusioned in many ways. And the last stroke was, last blow was the Zen priest said that there are no yogis here. The Ravalji of Badrinath is from Kerala. So
Ah,
we were good friends. I mean, the last 2, 3 days I was there. And he said, "Oh, you're wasting your time, go back. You're an educated boy," and so on. So anyway, I said, let me go further up. I saw some sadhus, many of them were smoking uh, cannabis. Per se, I don't know whether there's anything good or bad about that, but I did not want that kind of a teacher. So I looked and I walked up to what the last village on the Indian side is called Mana.
Mana. Ah.
And then from Mana, I went up and looked around. There were some caves, but there seemed to be nobody out there. So I was disappointed. I said, since I have burnt my bridges, or you can say burnt my boats, I didn't want to go back. And I was thoroughly disillusioned. So I came back. On the way, I looked at Vyasagopa. There was nothing there. I came back to just stand there and look at the Alakananda, which was flowing with full force, and just calculating how long will it take to end one's life here, because there's no point. Maybe next birth things may be different. That's when saw in the Vyasakupa that there was a dhuni outside. If there's a dhuni, there must be somebody inside. So I just turned and went in, and Babaji stood up. The moment he stood up, I knew who this was, because Those eyes were unmistakable. You know, anything else, yes, but those eyes. And his first words also were like, "Ghum phir kar वापस पहुंच गए." So, and I told Babaji, "दे मैं अभी आपके पैर छोड़ के कहीं नहीं जाऊंगा." And he said, देखा जाएगा. He laughed. Then I stayed with him for 3.5 years, wandering all over the Himalayas, places where even today the tourist circuit does not enter. Mm. And saw many wonders, which I don't know, I've said some things, but I've not said everything. And then that's it. That's how it started. The
Right.
other journey from 19. Mm.
So, Shriyamji, I want to ask you, the journey from the young Pathan Mumtaz Ali Khan to becoming Madhukar Nath, Shriyam, right?
Yeah.
Babaji, and in your later book, The Journey Continues, you talk about different lifetimes
Yeah.
where it is almost predestined that you are going to be born into this family and that you will become, a teacher, a living master, so to speak, right? So I want to ask you a question: that is everything preordained? And what is the role then of free will then? What is the role of our choices? Why can
See,
we then not live a life of selfishness and greed and say, nay, nay, my destiny will take me.
yeah,
Doesn't matter
exactly.
what I do.
That's the danger of believing in this word called
Yeah.
destiny. You do what you want and you blame it on destiny. You see, this word destiny simply means, let
Huh.
me explain this. See, we are all human beings, as far as we are now, Homo sapiens. From the ape to the Homo sapien, in between there have been many other modifications. When people say the Vanaras of the Ramayana were apes, I always tell them, listen, they're not apes. They are some creatures which were between the ape and the human being. They were
Right.
intelligent beings. They were like not like, Anyway, so in this journey, it's a 3 million years of genetic evolution
Hmm.
that we are as we are now. And because of 3 million years of multiple genetic modifications, we're all different, but at the same time the same, and in many ways.
Hmm.
But no one can deny that we are the result of 3 million years of genetic evolution, biologically. We cannot deny that. Now, that is the blueprint.
Right.
You don't even have to go into past lives and soul and all that, even the gene. This is the blueprint. However, having said that, I would say that there are ways and means to break out of this blueprint. If you do not totally surrender to this blueprint and say, I need to grow, get out of this, then you move out of it. Otherwise, there
Hmm.
is no sense in meditating. There's no sense in trying hard to find it. What is the point? It will be destined, it will happen. It's not like that. The background is set. There are some blueprints, but there is always the chance of breaking out of a blueprint. And the brave person does that because the potential is already there. See, in biology, take Darwin's theory, everything evolves and so on according to the adaptability, and all that is fine. But at some point,
Right.
there is what is called a mutation. Now, this mutation of the genes is a mysterious affair. Nobody can say how it happens. In human beings, this mutation is when somebody begins to think the seed of an idea that I need to come out, I need to grow.
Right. Right.
You
And
see?
Shriyamji,
So,
sorry, please.
yeah. So,
Sorry.
while there is a general blueprint, there is also the capacity in the human being to break out of this. This is the individual freedom we are
Right.
talking about. But when the person breaks out, different people may be limited by different blueprints. How you tackle it and swim out of that, I think, can happen only if there is a teacher, good teacher, a genuine teacher who can guide you and say, look, this is the exit, come out.
That's
So
exactly
it
what I was coming
luckily
to.
happened to me.
Right. The role of the guru, of a teacher, how important is it to have a guru who can guide you?
But
Can we do it without a guru?
no, unfortunately, yes, There have been people who have reached the highest spiritual enlightenment without a guru. Now, in this case, there are two things which we don't think about. One is we perhaps don't know who the gurus were,
Hmm.
because gurus don't want to be glorified. They might have even told those people, you don't have to say who taught you. One. Second, um, some people have so evolved that in their past lives they have gone through everything, and this life all guidance is over. They just come to fulfill a certain role, like Ramana Maharshi. People
Right.
say Ramana Maharshi did not have, but you are not Ramana Maharshi. We can't. You see this. At the same time, dependence on a guru is not the aim of a student. The aim of a student is to learn and move and live accordingly, not simply, oh, you're the great. Uh, Suppose I stand here in Madanapalli and somebody comes to me and asks me how to go to Tirupati. Okay, now I'm in the temporary role of a guru, a guide. Yeah. So I explain to him, this is the way to go. Now, instead of going there, if he needs to reach Tirupati, what
Hmm.
will happen if he stands there and does arati to me or the greater? You need to walk. You need to go to Tirupati, right?
Need to act on the guidance.
Yes. So that guidance is important. That's what I mean by a guru. Of course, there may be exceptional cases where that is not required.
Right.
But that is because perhaps in their previous life they had guidance from various sources. They don't need it now.
So, Shriyamji, that brings me to literally the searing question of the day. How do I find the right spiritual teacher? How do I know and not get misled by charlatans and you call them ochre-clad
I don't want to use any words, but unfortunately, yes, there are some. When there is a reality, there will always be an imitation. Right? There can't be an imitation without a reality. So when you see imitations, you must think there must be something somewhere. These guys are trying to imitate. There must be. So how do we find out? One thing is a spiritual, every spiritual teacher may not be a cup of tea for every person. You have to first look at the kind of person who can help you. It need not be a realized soul, it can be a teacher of the scriptures. The thing is to get mature enough so that you have the capacity to choose. Otherwise, how do you know? It's not possible to know at this stage. So, first signal, the first um, warning, I would say, is don't be in a hurry to find it. You see, then what happens? You fall into various things and then you can't extricate yourself from it. There is fear. I know a group of people who fell into the influence of a certain person. It was okay. These people only glorified him and then he thought he is what they thought he was. That was the problem. So, anyway, so then if you talk to them about something else, they would say, no, 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 very frightened, Guru Droha, something is going to happen to us. Nonsense. I mean, if really there is a spiritual person, a teacher, will he cause harm to a student who's trying to explore the spiritual field? You tell me. No. So, couple of things. One is don't be in a hurry.
Hmm.
You asked me a question, so I'm
Yes.
answering. Two,
Yes.
don't depend on the person's outer looks. He may be a handsome guy, but he may be a fraud. Who
True.
knows? Or he may be an ugly chap, but he may be genuine. These are all our standards, ugly and handsome and so on. Right? So one is that not to be impressed so quickly, be
My outer
slow, look
appearance.
carefully, and see that the person addresses your genuine concerns and not say, do this puja, do this, you'll no. See if the person is also reasonable. And if you ask me, you should also have a knowledge of the scriptures.
Right.
Of the, if he says like, oh, I don't care about scriptures, they're okay, I know everything, I am the scripture and so on, you have to be a little careful. Yeah, some people might have said it long ago, but everybody is not like that. It could be imitating, somebody could be imitating Osho. You never know.
Yeah.
So we have to watch out 3 points. And the fourth point is see if he wants to give you anything or he wants your checkbook.
Okay.
Criteria.
True, true,
And
true.
if you have kind of sorted out these things, and also make sure that there is no too much of pretensions and pomp and glory. Real teachers don't need all that. They could be a school teacher, he could be your watchman. Nobody knows. So
Yeah,
look for that genuine, and then when you sit down before that person and practice your meditation, see if something is happening to you or not.
right,
These
right.
are all,
Thank you. Yes. In fact, they say for if you are genuinely seeking, I mean,
yeah,
when the student is ready, the guru beckons. The guru
true,
finds you, right?
absolutely. If you are ready. So for what I said was all how to be ready for it,
Yes,
not
thank
how
you.
to find the teacher.
The teacher will find you
Of
then.
course,
Right, right. Yes. As in so many instances, whenever you passed and evolved soul, they would call you, beckon you, give you something.
especially if you have to watch. See, now it has become like I'm online on YouTube and all, which in a way is good for communication. But there have been sages who didn't have a banner. Like Maheshwarnath Babaji, my guru, he did not have a banner. He didn't have internet yet. I mean, those days internet was also not too good. But still, none of these things, they don't self-advertise themselves, you see. This is something to note. If there is
Yes,
someone self-advertising himself, we have to be little watchful and careful about this. This is Kali Yuga.
absolutely, absolutely. And so, I mean, the kind of yogic powers that those souls had, you mentioned Jiva Samadhi, and how Babaji also then
Yeah,
just gave up his prana because it was time to go, and how
correct.
you were involved that you don't hear of that now. I don't know. It's and up Kalyug ki baat, you brought that up. How there is so much happening in the world today, chaos, yet we are talking about it being a time of transition. That there's a churning, manthan ho raha hai, and there is no more room for fear now. It's only love that will, take us into the new world order. I would like you to tell us something about this new world order, the new consciousness that we are seeking all around us, and hope that it'll be a collective mass that moves towards that.
It's difficult even at this point to have a mass movement towards that because it's based in the spiritual development is quite individual. However, if a number of people begin to show interest, what I love about this present condition, there are many bad things, of course, many negative things. What I see is that when I go for a talk or a satsang, there's lots of young people.
Yes.
There was a time when you could see only people like me with gray hair, but now you go and you see young people asking intelligent questions, wanting to learn, which is a good sign that there is some movement towards a new order.
Shift happening. Yes.
That's much I can say. How we work with this and how we deal with this, we have to see how it goes. But certainly, if you give, let's say, a 50 years or so, I think things will change. Things will change because you see, the young are going to inherit the earth. So
Yes.
Uh, so once the seeds are planted in them, I think then they will take care of the rest.
It will blossom. Yes.
So I think you're right. There is a movement towards it, but it's not come to that mass proportions, which
As yet.
would be great to do. Human beings' brains have developed now much beyond the frontal lobe civilization we live in, if you want, if you can use that term. There are other parts of the brain which have not been explored. So it's about time people are slowly looking at this, learning. I hear of stories of people who suddenly are doing so well, they drop everything and go and find a cottage in the forest somewhere and live there happily. So something is, I'm not saying everybody should go to the forest. I'm just giving you an example of how things could change.
Could change. Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, so I see this happening, but nobody can decide on the time span.
In fact, time is so relative, isn't
Mhm.
it? Yes.
Also, considering the different kinds of people there on this earth, each person is unique in a way.
Hmm.
That's why I don't like the term Aam Aadmi. There is no
Right.
Aam Aadmi. Everybody is extraordinary in some way, potentially.
True. True.
So it's not a political statement.
So, Shriyamji, I want to ask you something that personally fascinated me. So I have a little knowledge of, experience of the chakras, the seven chakras, basically, the physical ones. And I'm aware that each chakra has a particular color, the color has its own energy, it means something. And the Anahat chakra, which so constantly the masters touch you there and it takes you into a state of bliss. So, what in my consciousness, it's a green, it's an emerald green gold. You talk about a silvery light that infuses you. So, I wanted to just learn a little more about the silvery light. And are there kind of levels of hierarchy in these light beams? What do they mean? Whatever you can actually share with us, please.
Um, People talk about the heart center. When you talk about the heart center, it does not necessarily mean a particular position in this area.
Yes.
It could mean anywhere in this area.
Right.
Like the Kabir Panthis, who are also Sufis in a way and Bhaktas, the Kabir Panthis, they are also yogis. They think of the heart on the left side here. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Uh, Ramana Maharshi said he always felt it on the right.
Right. Huh.
Now the yogis talk of the Anahat, which is in the center. Right.
Hmm.
So, from my understanding, from the texts that I have read, not only from the Satchakra Nirupana and the traditional textbooks that we have, and also my experience, and also the Jewish Kabbalah and the Zohar and the Sufi teachings, I would say that it could be here, it could be here, and it could be here. It depends on a person's background and various factors. But they're all lit. They're not dark. They're lit. Now the Sufis worship this light, as you said, as a beautiful green
Yes.
in the Anahat,
Huh.
in the center. There are others who look at it as, see, um, the thing is, the entire WebGeor spectrum, the WebGeor, violet, blue,
Yes.
indigo, and
Yes.
so on,
Yes.
the entire WebGeor spectrum is there in the Shushumna
That's
and the
right.
Sahasrara. So
Yeah.
depending on the type of person you are and the kind of teaching you follow, you attract that kind of light.
Right.
So you're right and you're wrong. When somebody else is having white, he'll say, no, no, how can it be green? So that is not a controversy, really,
Uh
because
huh.
you might have hit upon the green one of the spectrum. The other guy has touched the white one. It is okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I was taught by Babaji to think of it as a silver white lotus.
I
So I
see.
have, so I have I kind of tapped that. That's why. That's why I explain it that way.
A silvery light.
You
Okay.
chant the Guru mantra as you fix your attention in Anahat. I have also meditated on the left center and the right center, which is also quite legitimate and fine. But it doesn't, each thing does not suit everybody. That's why some people read Ramana Maharshi and he said it is here and they try to keep it, it's not working. And some people do this, it doesn't. So it depends. This is why at this point one would need a guide who would say, look, try this first, try this. Ah, now you got it.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
yes, there are each center, for instance, since you asked me in the beginning of this question, each center is supposed to have, from the point of view of the tantras, uh, a certain color
Hmm.
and a certain symbol and a certain sound. Hmm. For instance, the last center called the Mooladhara. Mooladhara actually means
Yes.
root foundation. Moola Adhara.
Root. Hmm.
Mm, its tattva is Prithvi, which means the earth, and therefore it has a golden yellow color. And then the next one is silver, and like the moon,
Right.
and then the Agni, which is the fire, and then the Anahat is sky blue, which means it's almost colorless, but it's a beautiful blue. You know, the clear sky with no
Yes.
clouds.
Yes. Yes.
And then the Vishuddhi, which is violet, actually indigo. Mm. I mean, these are the colors prescribed.
Yes. Yes.
This-
Yes.
yeah. And the Ajna is milk white, and the Sahasrara is multicolored. It's like a rainbow.
Right.
If
Right.
anybody has clairvoyance or the capacity to see things which are not normally seen, then one would see the Sahasrara as a kind of a fountain coming out from here and going from all sides
Right.
in
Right.
different colors, is my understanding.
No, no. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I was fascinated by the silver light and the waves of ecstasy and bliss that, the states that you were constantly in. And and also the fact that you know, at no point do you refer to any supreme power as God. It is just it's different, I would say, an expansion of consciousness and dimensions of, superior, super intelligence beings. I mean, there is no time now to actually go into the Sarpaloka, episode that you described.
The, re-
As at
re- the reason why we'll meet again, the reason why I don't use the word this God
yeah,
precisely because it has so many connotations. It has been colored in so many ways. So when I say God, everybody might have their own idea about it, which is why I don't use that word.
okay,
Not that I have
okay,
anything against it, but I don't use it because people then, oh, he said God, that means it must be this or it must be that. So I
right,
say a supreme reality.
right, right, right.
And that supreme reality is so vast and unconditioned that it is difficult for the conditioned brain even to conceive of. So then what do we do? Uncondition it. That's all.
You have to unlearn. So, yeah, very quickly, I'm going to ask you a question that's come from Yamini.
Mhm.
How do you stay present while meditating? How
How
do you
do
turn
we?
off? How do you stay present while meditating? How do you turn off the fuss of the day and the socio-political milieu we're living in, all the noise, the clutter? How do you switch that off?
It's not easy to switch that on. Let's not start by trying to switch that off. You know, when you are searching only for the truth and decided that none of these things are going to affect you, and that you have one pointedly decided that I want to be free of this. And therefore, I'm also not caught in the attractions and repulsions of this world, including my sense organs.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, this has to be learnt only through practice. When this has happened, then only you will be able to meditate in the present. Otherwise, you see, our memories are based on our desires and pleasant experience. Nobody want to have memories of unpleasant experiences. Nobody wants, even though it may come sometime because of the pain caused for us. So the moment we understand this fact and also understand that what has happened before, just 1 minute before, does not exist anymore now. Have you thought about that? What is now is only what we are now, right now.
Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
here and I am here. What has
Yes.
happened before that to you and to me does not exist now except in my brain as a memory. The moment I begin to think on those lines, I say, why am I letting my memories cloud my present? Let me keep it out. The thought process starts there. But to
Right.
succeed, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. What you should understand is all these experiences are playing like a tape in your head. When you understand this, then you are not so involved with it. And one day you dump it out of the window and sit down. I'm using a simile, but then you're
Right.
here. And the reality is not somewhere in the past, what we have learned, nor is it it has to be now. If it is not now, it's not the reality. Which is why the Upanishad use the word idam, here and now. Isha Vashyam, idam sarvam. That supreme reality pervades everything here and now. For that, we have to be free of projection in the future and carrying these impressions from the past. So, first, it has to be understood. This has to be understood. When this is fully understood, then only one can work on this. Simply, if I sit down and say I must get rid of it, it's not possible. I have to understand why, and then the how will translate itself into action.
Thank you. And somewhere I feel, Sri MG, under the grace of a guru, like you demonstrated like a childlike devotion, it's just, you just completely surrender. Somewhere, you're making that choice between leaving the clutter and noise behind. And it's like arpit karte hain apne aap ko, that kind of a thing, the surrender. There is so much I want to ask you, so much I want to talk about. We haven't even touched upon, Mahavatar Babaji, who you call Shri Guru Babaji, more about Maheshwarnath Ji, were fascinating. And I'm using a word that is too short of what they really are. I mean, my sort of pranams to them. I think we need to actually wrap up. I wanted to actually thank you for the Satsang Foundation, the Manav Ekta mission that you have taken off. I know it is so easy for you to actually, you have attained your individual, I would say, in a way, salvation, but you continue to work for humanity. You've said that time and time again, that service to mankind is service to God.
True.
And I mean, that grounding, and I would actually urge everyone to read. I haven't read the other books, but The Journey Continues and Apprentice to Himalayan Master. And to put aside, I mean, I want to end with this quote, which I found so beautiful, Shrien, which you said, there are greater realms of consciousness which cannot be comprehended by dry logic. And currently available levels of intelligence. So clearly we all need to expand our consciousness.
True, but the potential is there in everybody. Please remember this. This is not said to discourage. It's not a pessimistic statement. What I meant was that
Yes.
the potential to expand is there in everyone in seed form. The thing is, we should nurture that seed. Shouldn't
Yes.
let it go off. Nurture that. Even if somebody says, no, it's all nonsense, let me think about it. So this is important to note, which is a good news.
Thank you. So you are generally hopeful that we will evolve and progress as a race.
Otherwise, all my work could also go waste. I hope so. I believe so. I think things will happen, but it takes time. It's not so easy, because for centuries we are caught up in a certain pattern. To move out of it, first we need to think about it, then we need to take the first step. When you take the first step, then comes an obstacle. So, but eventually, I'm sure, because all human beings, one, because they have the potential, second, because they're intelligent, I think. So one day we will discover this, 100%. If I could do it, why not you or anybody else?
Thank you, Shri MG.
That's
You've
the
been
hope.
truly inspiring. You were an evolved soul, which is where, I mean, we can aspire to get there.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time. And I
Thank you
do
very
hope that we meet soon so that I
Thank
can
you.
carry further this
So
conversation.
where do you live?
I live in Delhi, actually, in
Good.
Gurgaon.
So we'll meet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you Shri M and Punita Roy for this important discussion on wellness and mindfulness. We thank our celebration partner Diageo. And thank you all for watching and being such a great audience. Please stay logged on to continue to watch with us the series of exciting sessions featuring a stellar list of speakers that have been specially curated for you. As you're aware, the cultural sector has been critically impacted by the pandemic, and while we have braced ourselves to embrace the new normal, we have struggled to ensure that we can continue to bring you a free flow of knowledge and ideas. We would love for you to support us at Teamwork Arts. Any contribution is welcome and would help spread knowledge and ideas seamlessly against all odds. You can also tweet using hashtag Jaipur Literature Festival 2021 @Jaipur Lit Fest. The festival is protected by Dettol. Hope to see you in the next session. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is a tribute from me and my family to the Diggi family and JLF. सरकार ने समाप्त किया वो एरा, ना जाने फिर कब होगा वो सवेरा। JLF है जयपुर की शान, डिग्गी परिवार ने बढ़ाया सदैव JLF का मान। बहुत सी आई थी अड़चने, डिग्गी परिवार ने टूटने न दिए जयपुराइट्स के सपने। तो JLF का किया गया स्थानांतरण, कुदरत को भी न मंजूर था ये रण। सरकार ने कहा JLF को डिग्गी पैलेस से बाहर ले जाओ ना, तभी इस दुनिया में आ गया कोरोना। डिग्गी पैलेस को है धन्यवाद, वर्षों से कराया JLF में ऑथर्स का सक्सेसफुल भावार्थ संवाद।
Welcome to the 14th Jaipur Literature Festival. From here at the Amer Fort, we're standing at the iconic Diwani Arm, or the court of general audiences. Behind me is where the Maharaja used to receive his citizens from across the state who used to bring to him petitions. What better place than to bring to you our festival each year? I know we would have loved to have you all here, but unfortunately this year we are trying to get a sense of history and culture and tradition of this great state of Rajasthan and Jaipur to your homes. We'd like to acknowledge the Department of Archaeology and Museums who look after and maintain these wonderful buildings and heritage and historic monuments for us, and of course the Department of Art and Culture.
I believe
Art matters.
I believe
Art matters.
I believe
art matters.
ओहम सोहम बाजे रे बाजे, त्रिकुट शब्द निशानी। इंगला रे पिंगला सुख मन जोवे, जोवे रे जोवे, जोवे रे जोवे। श्वेत ध्वजा फहरानी गगन मा, आवाज होवे जीना जीना जीना। कहे कबीर सुनो भाई साधु, साधु रे साधु, साधु रे साधु। अगम निगम की बानी गगन मा, आवाज होवे जीना जीना जीना।